The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice.
Hey guys, there's a weekly forecast for June 27th through July 1st of 2022. Alright, let's start with the euro dollar.
Okay, this is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since this price action right here is very strong short, and this move still having a ways to go in the long term, I'm short biased right back down to this pivot low right here. And moreover, since there was a weak weekly short trade that formed right here and a strong long trade that formed right here, in the short term I'm long biased right back up to these price levels right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by the current setup I'm looking at. So the last weekly short trade that formed was right here. And if you recall, there was a weekly long trade that formed right here about a month ago. And going strictly from this weekly strength, this long trade seemed to be stronger than this short trade. So the weekly bias was long, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. However, as you guys know, I always need lower time frame confirmation to confirm these higher time frame biases. And so for the last couple of weeks, as price wiggled around in these areas, the lower time frames were actually confirming a weekly short bias. And so I was waiting for lower time frame confirmation of long strength so I could enter this long entry. And just this week, that lower time frame long confirmation did form in these areas right here. However, simultaneously this week, a new weekly long trade formed right here. But yet again, this long trade seems to be stronger than this short trade if we go strictly from this weekly strength. So the weekly bias remains long, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low now. Okay, so let me go over the price elements that are providing short strength for this short trade and long strength for this new long trade. So let's go over to the monthly chart. All right, this is a monthly chart. So that weekly short trade formed roughly at these levels right here. Now, in terms of price elements that are providing short strength for this weekly short trade, if you recall, all we really have is this fake weekly HNS that formed right here, which actually hit its target height level, roughly in these areas, which is providing overarching weekly short strength. Okay, and in terms of gaps and trend lines, there are no price elements providing short strength for this weekly short trade. Okay, and that weekly long trade just formed this week in these areas right here. Now, first of all, we have this small gap right here that's providing long strength for the long trade. And moreover, we have this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. You want to remember this trend line is legitimate because it has three touches at 1, 2, and 3 right here. And moreover, we have one more trend line from way back. So let me just show you that. Just zoom out. Okay, so that trend line that's providing long strength is from this pivot to this pivot right here. Okay, let's zoom back in. Okay, so again, we have this gap level and two trend lines that are providing long strength for that long trade. So again, going strictly from that weekly strength, the weekly bias seems to be long, or in other words, price is likely to reach these price levels right here before reaching this new pivot low right here. Okay, so let me show you what I'll be looking for in terms of lower time confirmation so I could take that long entry. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, if you recall, initially that first weekly long trade stop loss level was at this level right here. And now that new weekly long trade stop loss level is at this new pivot right here. Now, initially, as price came up to these levels right here, we got confirmation of strong short strength with a breakout and immediate break back in. However, price coming right back down to that pivot low to make strong short strength. And so we got this nice move all the way down to these levels right here, just shy of that original main stop loss level right here. And then moreover, in the midweek analysis, I was mentioning that one way I would take a long entry with lower time frame confirmation is if we get a clean rejection candle that shows strong long strength. Now initially we did get a rejection candle right here. However, in my opinion, the wick on the lower end was not long enough to be legitimate, so I did not take that long entry. And then moreover, this week price ranged about, and we actually did get a nice rejection candle right here, which typically I would use as lower time frame confirmation of long strength. However, since my stop loss was at this level right here, I needed a little bit more pullback to take the long entry. So again, I did not take this long entry. Okay, and then this week, that new weekly long trade formed. So when there's already a bias on the higher time frames and a new trade forms in either direction, the lower time frame confirmations get reset. So that's something to remember. And so at this point, any time frames confirmation of strong long strength that includes the 1 hour, 15 minute, and 5 minute charts will confirm a weekly long bias. Okay, so I'll be watching the even lower time frames for possible confirmation of long strength also. However, there are possibilities on this 4 hour chart also. So that's from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here. You can see we had a breakout and immediate break back in, showing normal short strength, and so we got this move down here. However, if price could pull all the way back up to this pivot high right here, that will create strong long strength and confirm a weekly long bias. However, again, in this case, I'm gonna need a nice pullback roughly to the 1.0440 levels, roughly around here, to take that long entry. Okay, and let me show you another possible long entry confirmation on the 1 hour chart that I'm looking at. So let's go over to the 1 hour chart. Okay, so on this 1 hour chart, on this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. So we got a breakout and immediate break back in, showing normal long strength. However, price could come right back down to this pivot low. That will create strong short strength, right? However, simultaneously, if we could get a nice V-shaped recovery on the even lower time frames, like on the 1 minute or 5 minute charts, that will confirm extreme long strength and also confirm a weekly long bias. Moreover, I much rather have this setup because I do need a pullback all the way down to the 1.0440 levels down here to take a long entry anyway. Okay, so I'll keep you guys up to date with this one on the midweek analysis. All right, so let's go on to the pound dollar. Okay, so if you're having trouble understanding what I'm talking about in terms of weekly biases and lower time frame confirmations, please watch my price action trading course, where that course is designed to provide you the necessary information so you can understand these forecasts. All right, so this is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since this horizontal trend line right here just became legitimate with its 3 touches at 1, 2, and 3 right here, and since price has a tendency to want to test strong levels in the long term, I am long biased right back up to this horizontal trend line. And moreover, since there was strong long strength confirmed from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here, with a breakout and immediate break back in, however, price coming right back up to that pivot high to create strong long strength. And although we did get a nice pullback all the way down to these levels, since this trend line right here that was used for this strong long strength is not broken out yet, in the medium term, I'm also long biased right back up to this pivot high right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by the current setup I'm looking at. So the last weekly short trade that formed was right here, and the last long trade that formed was just this week right here. Now going strictly from this weekly strength, this short trade and this long trade seem to be about even in terms of strength. And so I'm yet to decide the weekly bias, whether long or short. And I will be looking at the lower time frame confirmations to figure out the weekly bias for the setup. Okay, so first let me go ahead and show you the price elements that are providing short strength for this short trade and long strength for this long trade. So let's go over to the monthly chart. Okay, so that weekly short trade formed in these areas right here. Now, first of all, we have this mini gap right here that is providing short strength for this short trade. And then moreover, if you recall from my previous forecast, there was a new trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here that created very strong short strength about 3 months ago. Now that short strength created from this trend line right here must be added to this short trade also. Okay, and in terms of long strength for that long trade that formed in these areas right here. So first of all, we have this small gap right here providing long strength. And then we have multiple legitimate trend lines. from this pivot to this pivot, that's 1. Another one from this pivot to this pivot right here, that's 2. And another one from this pivot to this pivot right here. Okay, so those are the price elements that are providing long strength for that long trade. However, at the same time, there's actually a small gap right here that is deducting long strength because price is running right into it. Okay, so we do have to deduct the short strength provided from this small gap. Okay, and it doesn't end there. Now, if you recall in the overview, I was mentioning there was strong long strength confirmed at this price level right here. And so this overarching long strength must be added to this long trade's long strength. And then moreover, there's actually a fake weekly double top that formed. It actually hit its target height level, which is actually creating overarching weekly short strength, and it must be added to this weekly short trade. Okay, but it's times like these when the lower time frame confirmations come in handy, because you want to remember that ultimately the lower time frame confirmations have the final say in terms of higher time frames biases. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you what I'll be looking for in terms of lower confirmations to confirm this weekly bias, whether long or short. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. All right, so on this 4-hour chart, try you on these two trend lines. That's one's from this pivot to this pivot right here. The other's from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now, both these trend lines are providing the possibility of lower time frame confirmation. So if you get a breakout, immediate break back in on the top trend line, however, price comes right back up to that pivot high, that'll create strong long strength. And on the other hand, if price breaks this trend line out and comes back in immediately, however, price comes right back down to that pivot low, that'll create strong short strength. Okay, but in this case, I much rather have that weekly bias to be confirmed as long. So I much rather have this scenario up here to happen. Now, the reason for that is because the stop loss of those biases on the bottom side is at this level right here, which is much closer to current price than that weekly short trade stop loss level way above. Okay, so if we do get this strong long confirmation, I'm going to need a pullback to about 150 pip stop loss, roughly at these 1.2050 levels right here, to get a long entry, again with the stop loss at this pivot low right here. Now keep in mind, the reason why I'm making a 150 pip stop loss is because, like I showed you on the overview, there are elements in price that are showing long-term strength long. Okay, so that's why, although I normally take 100 to 50 pip stop loss risk parameters, this time I'm willing to take about 150 to perhaps even 200 pip stop loss this time. Okay, so we're going to have to see what happens with this one, and I'll keep you guys updated on the midweek analysis.
Okay, so that's it for the weekly forecast. Now, just a heads up. When your bias analysis is extremely difficult, like for example on the pound dollar, that's when the lower time frame confirmations really come in handy. So as you guys know, I have 2 layers of lower time frame confirmations in my strategy. Now, of course, you could use a spin off my strategy, but if you plan to make your own, you want to remember that each layer of the lower time frame confirmations should increasingly use current price and moreover the even lower time frames. So for example, if my first layer of lower confirmations is on the 1-hour chart, that next layer should be on the even lower time frame. So for example, the 1 to 5 minute charts. And moreover, you want that next layer to deal with even more current price. So you'll probably be using the 1 to 5 minute charts or even perhaps the tick charts. Okay, so I hope you guys have a great week, guys, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.